you get to make your maiden speeches, especially during these procedural motions. And I really want to encourage them to use this opportunity this morning. Honorable Speaker, if you allow me to now move, Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 97(1), this House orders that each speech in a debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for each other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each. And that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Speaker, I think for the benefit of our new members, these procedural motions on limitation of time, Honorable Speaker, are customary, just to allow ourselves to have adequate time for the movers and those who are seconding them to move second, and also have some last 10 minutes to reply. And I realized, Honorable Speaker, last night, if you were here, at the time I was replying on the presidential speech, I had close to 20 members asking me to donate a minute, and only had 10 minutes to make my reply and donate time. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it's good for even all our good new members to note that at the conclusion of a debate, it is indeed possible for the mover to donate a minute or two. And maybe if you are alone and you have not had a chance to contribute, I can donate 9 out of the 10 minutes to you. And I just beg to reply if I have nothing to say in response, or anybody who was a mover of a certain motion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, many of our members will have at least 10 minutes to have their take on any motion. And I want to encourage members. I know there's a lot of enthusiasm to speak at this time, at the beginning of any session of Parliament. But with time, this dissipates, and I want to encourage members to please take your time. The time to make your mark in the House is not in the middle of the session. It is usually at the beginning of the session. In your maiden speech, where you will speak uninterrupted for the 10 minutes or so. Therefore, let me, without saying much, ask our leader of minority, the Honorable Pio Wandai, to second this motion.
Madam Speaker, this being a procedural motion, I wouldn't say much. But before I second it, Madam Speaker, I want to obviously associate myself with the remarks that have been made earlier on the enthusiasm and interest of members to make maiden speeches on the floor of this House, and indeed to contribute to motions. Madam Speaker, since yesterday, or yesterday but one, I've received numerous complaints from a number of members about logging in, pressing the button, and queuing for eternity. Some of them have made very interesting accounts that their positions in the screen, on the screen, I don't know how to call it, kept shifting, moving from 2 to 10 to 15, 30, back to 10, and so on and so forth. I know this could be an issue of technology, perhaps, but Madam Speaker, you know from tradition and practice, right from the 11th Parliament, we have had a situation where the Speaker has developed a practice of following the order of requests for making contributions, even though, of course, from time to time he has to balance other interests, the regions and so on and so forth, including even the opposite sides. But I may want to perhaps plead with you that for us to start on the right footing, we perhaps have an opportunity to explain to members the criteria upon which they get to be given a chance to speak on the floor of the House, so that there is no feeling or perception that there is some application of unfairness and so on and so forth. So that's basically what I wanted to say, because I've got a lot of complaints from across the divide, if I may say so, but more so from my side of the coalition. Yeah, I hope that's something that can be addressed amicably and without really much ado. Two, of course, you know, these members are anxious to be seen to be talking, and that's why they're here, really. Their constituents want to see them on the screens, want to hear their voices discussing issues of national importance and issues of interest to them in the constituencies. Two, Madam Speaker, I wish to, of course, second the motion as moved by the Honorable Chungwa. It's basically really a matter of limiting time for debate, which has been a matter of practice and tradition. So without further ado, I second.
Thank you, Leader of Minority. Before I propose the question, I do agree with you that it's important for members to understand the criteria. Yes, the standard criteria is that we follow the order in which one logged in. As to if numbers moved back and forth, I think the IT team will look into that if there was a challenge. Some members complained that they were in the list and then suddenly they weren't on the list and their machine went off. Others couldn't log in at all, but I think those matters will be addressed by the IT department. But yes, members, we do follow the order, but yesterday being the first few days of Parliament, it was also important that if 3 persons from one region were following each other, then the only correct thing to do is to balance by skipping to the nearest one from a different part of the country and different political party and so on, and also just making sure that there's also a gender balance. You may have seen that maybe Martin Wanyonyi was right at the bottom, but we did jump to him because he represents a certain class. But we will get to improve as we go along. So members, I think we will look into that. Thank you. I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for each member speaking, except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each. And that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Can I see those who... Okay. So the mood of the House is that we put the question. Okay. Honorable members, I put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for each member speaking, except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many of this opinion say aye? Aye. And will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it.
Order number 9, motion, appointment of members to the Committee on Appointments.
Leader of majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, maybe before I move the second motion, it's worth noting that having passed that procedural motion, now the motion on this is order number 9, Honorable Speaker, I believe now subject to those timelines. And I'll just move on, Honorable Speaker, to move the motion that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 204, this House approves the appointment of the following members to the Committee on Appointments, in addition to those specified under paragraph 1. 1, the Honorable Nelson Koech, MP. 2, the Honorable Rehab Wachira Mukami, MP. 3, the Honorable Dido Ali Raso, MP. 4, the Honorable George Gitonga Murugara, MP. 5, the Honorable David Gikaria, MP. 6, the Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, MP. 7, the Honorable Mary Emase, MP. 8, the Honorable Abdul Rahim Dawood, MP. 9, the Honorable Junet Mohammed, CBS, MP. 10, the Honorable Caleb Amisi, MP. 11, the Honorable Stephen Mule, MP. 12, the Honorable Abdi Shurie, MP. 13 is the Honorable Naisula Lesuda, MP. 14, the Honorable David Kosing, CBS, MP. And finally, number 15, the Honorable Mishim Boko, CBS, MP. Honorable Speaker, it's imperative to note that this House, Honorable Speaker, ought to have approved this committee on appointments at least within 7 days on assembly of a new House. And Honorable Speaker, you know the challenges we had, and we were not able to do this, but pursuant to the Speaker's directives on the 6th, in his message on the 6th of October, you remember he did indicate that we need to have this committee set up by at least 12th of October, which, Honorable Speaker, I believe is today. So we are at least within time to have this committee in place, and members are aware that also His Excellency the President did convey a message to the House nominating for appointment certain persons to the offices of Attorney General, Secretary to the Cabinet, and those who will take office as Cabinet Secretaries. But for that to happen, for them to be able to take office, Honorable Speaker, members are also aware that they must go through vetting. And the committee then that is charged with that responsibility to consider these nominees for appointment as Cabinet Secretaries is this committee. And therefore, it's quite a very important committee that is set out in also in our Constitution, Honorable Speaker. This is done pursuant to under Article 152, sub-Article 2, and Honorable Speaker, if you allow me to read that the President shall nominate and with the approval of the National Assembly, appoint Cabinet Secretaries. Honorable Speaker, that being a constitutional obligation that has been given to this House through this committee, then none of these Cabinet Secretaries, or indeed the Attorney General, the Secretary of the Cabinet, will take office and transact business on behalf of the people of Kenya and the government of Kenya until and unless they are approved, considered by this committee and approved by the House. Honorable Speaker, because I see the leader of Minority Emeritus, the Honorable John Mbadi, in a very animated conversation with somebody behind me. Let me also take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to thank the leadership of the Minority Party in the House. Because you remember, Honorable Speaker, in the 12th Parliament, we considered appointees or nominees to cabinet on one side of the political divide without the participation of the minority. And my hearty congratulations to the leadership of the minority in the 13th Parliament, because they have been very magnanimous and exhibited very good leadership. When we met at the House Business Committee yesterday, we were able to go through the list of proposed names, both from the majority party and the majority and minority parties, and we agreed unanimously on the names that are here before the House. And you will bear me witness that if you look at the names, Honorable Speaker, they are not just seasoned members of this House, but members who also represent various interests with a very good balance, both regional balance, ethnic balance. We have even considered religious balance and other interests in the country, Honorable Speaker, and to make sure that we afford the people of Kenya the opportunity, because these are things that we will do in a very transparent and accountable manner as a House. The people of Kenya will be able to follow us live on television as we vet the cabinet secretaries. And Honorable Speaker, it's also worth noting for the benefit of members of the public that indeed the office of the clerk of the National Assembly has already notified the general public of the details of the said vetting. And what awaits, therefore, is this committee to commence the necessary approval by this House. And I do want to believe, Honorable Speaker, that if there are any Kenyans out there who have memoranda, who have anything that they would want to submit to the House and the committee to consider during the vetting process, they know they have, I think, until Thursday of this week to be able to submit such memoranda. And I want to assure the country that this committee will consider all memoranda that are brought before the House, and we will be fair and just to everybody. Those who submit memoranda will have a fair opportunity to be heard or their memoranda to be considered, but also afford those against whose names or persons memoranda have been submitted an opportunity also to be heard and to have their say before the committee. Honorable Speaker, I don't want to belabor this because I'm sure having passed the procedural motion, members are also eager to contribute, but I want to encourage all of us to support this. As I said, it's a committee that we have agreed upon between ourselves in the majority party and my colleagues in the minority. And again, let me once again commend the leadership of the minority that this time round in the 13th Parliament, and indeed this is the spirit we want to see going forward, as His Excellency the President did beseech the House, a bipartisan approach to issues. Honorable Speaker, none of the nominees who have been nominated for appointment as cabinet secretaries is assured of their job until the House approves. And Honorable Speaker, it is also important, even as we approve these nominees, soon we shall be changing our standing orders to have now whoever is approved as a cabinet secretary to appear before this House to answer to questions, statements, and matters that are of concern to members of the public. Therefore, let me just, even as we wish all the nominees all the best as they prepare to appear before the Appointments Committee, also alert them that I am certain all these members in the 13th Assembly are very eager to hold them to account on their actions in public and in private, and also tell them early enough that His Excellency the President has made it clear, at least to those of us in the leadership, that he will allow Parliament to exercise our mandate without hindrance, without undue influence and interference. Honorable Speaker, we should relax when we see His Excellency the President appear for lunch. We must always remember him and the Deputy President are former members of Parliament, and it's good to be able to interact with members of Parliament. It's one of those few and rare opportunities when we get the executive coming for lunch in the legislature. Honorable Speaker, we continue to welcome them, but also we will do our work as members of Parliament to oversight and offer meaningful oversight on government. And I want to invite even those of us in the minority and even ourselves in the majority to exercise that oversight role and our representation role in this House without fear. I think His Excellency the President has also been emphatic that the days when you had to be coerced to take a certain political position are way behind us now. And nobody will be coerced, nobody will be intimidated to take whatever position, even in the approval of these nominees, Honorable Speaker, as we consider the appointment of this appointments committee. With those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move, and I want to again appeal to all of us, even as we debate the appointment of these names, Honorable Speaker, to be able to contribute to this motion, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kitui Central, what is your point of order?
You know, Honorable Speaker, our standing orders do allow that when a member says point of order, he should be given a chance to say what is wrong with what is being said. Honorable Speaker, I'm listening to my friend, the Majority Leader, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, and he's saying oversight belongs to the minority side. I think our constitution is very clear. Oversight is the work of all members of parliament. Because in this parliament, we don't have the government in the house. So I would want to ask you, Honorable Speaker, to declare my friend out of order, because he's misleading Kenyans. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Honorable Speaker, you know Dr. Makali Mulu is my friend, as he indeed says. But I think from where he's sitting, he was not listening to me. And if he was listening to me, he didn't hear what I said. Because I said I want to encourage those of you in the minority party, as I also encourage those of us in the majority party, to exercise our oversight role without fear of intimidation, without fear that anybody will coerce you, anybody will come to audit your CDF on account of your position, anybody will take you to DCI for the positions you take. Therefore, Honorable Makali, relax. You have nothing to fear. But indeed, what he's saying is true, and is just what I had said. Maybe it bypassed his ears, that our role as members of parliament is to oversight government. And that's why I did encourage us, even as we settle down and we have the House Procedures Committee, let us hasten to amend our standing orders to ensure that these cabinet secretaries don't grow horns as soon as they are appointed. And they must know that the people who have vetted them, the people who have approved them, reside in this house. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, they must be responsive to the needs and aspirations of the Kenyan people that are represented by their representatives in this house. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I was just concluding and encouraging all of us to support this very bipartisan and well-balanced committee. And I want to encourage members of this committee, without preempting debate, Honorable Speaker, we this afternoon could consider, from what I see on the business for the afternoon, Honorable Speaker, the calendar of the House, and the reason maybe we will need a short break at the end of this week is for this committee and the Committee on Selections to be able to take time to consider the work that is ahead of them, so that we also allow His Excellency the President to approve, to appoint those that will have been approved by the House, Honorable Speaker. And with that, I beg to move, and I want to request the my good friend and leader of minority to second this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Leader of Minority.
Madam Speaker, I'll rise to second this motion. And as I do so, let me begin by saying that the appointment of this committee is obviously a matter which is in line with the Constitution and Article 152, Article 2. It is this House that has got the power and mandate to approve the appointment of those who have been nominated by the President to serve as cabinet secretaries. Again, of course, this is buttressed by our own standing order number 45. Madam Speaker, why I'm saying this is the notion that sometimes gets peddled out there that this House is simply a rubber stamp. Far from it. This House cannot be a rubber stamp. This House, in vetting nominees for appointment as cabinet secretaries, is exercising its constitutional duty under Article 152, sub-article 2 of the Constitution. This past 1 week, I was amazed to read in one of the dailies a notable columnist by the name Barack Muluka was quoted as having said that the president should be given freedom and leeway to appoint those whom he wants to work with, that there should be no impediments being placed on the part of the president choosing those whom he wants to work with. You know, Madam Speaker, the problem in this country is sometimes about intellectuals who, when they turn into apologists of the establishment, are getting their thinking wrong or losing their mind sometimes. Because nothing could be further from the truth. We are a House comprising of honorable members of parliament.
Member for Westlands, what's your point of order?
From both sides of the divide.
Madam Speaker, it is not a call for a point of order. I was just queuing to contribute to this motion.
Okay, then maybe what we do, there is 50 requests to speak and 5 interventions of exactly the same number of people, the same people in that order. So maybe it's just better to remove your intervention button and be on the request queue, because you're all there. And I can name those members: member for Tharaka, member for Mumias East, member for Kachiliba, member for Malava, and each of you are actually in that order in the requests at the top of the page.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of course, I hope you will indulge the honorable member for Westlands when the time comes. Madam Speaker, what I was saying is this is one of the most critical duties of the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Madam Speaker, the idea of vetting persons nominated to be appointed as state officers is a very noble idea. And if you want to know how serious this exercise is in some jurisdictions, you can take a visit to the U.S. Senate, during confirmation hearings. It is such a serious exercise that the Capitol Hill comes to a standstill when the U.S. Senate is conducting confirmation hearings of nominees appointed by the President of the United States of America. And us being a presidential system, in line with the U.S. system, we need to equally take this exercise seriously. So the point I'm making here is, when this House sits, and indeed, under Article 152, sub-article 2, and Standing Order 45, this House in its entirety is the organ that does the vetting. The committee, of course, will do the nitty-gritties, but this House has got the ultimate power to reject or approve every single nominee. It's a duty we must exercise judiciously and with utmost decorum and very seriously so. Madam Speaker, you know, we have been told that the Constitution provides frameworks for this appointment, of course, as we know. But, Madam Speaker, even as the committee sits, the Committee on Appointments, once approved today, starts its sittings to deal with this matter, I will be asking the committee from the very beginning, and this is very important, that even as we look at the suitability or otherwise of individual persons who have been nominated by the president, you need to look at the whole package first in context. In context. Does it meet the tenets of the Constitution? For instance, we know clearly under Article 10 of the Constitution that talks about values, principles of good governance, national values. We know there are issues of equity, regional balance. Do we have a sense of that in the entire package? That is very important, even before you get to address the suitability of individual members. That's very important. Does it meet gender balance? Does it address issues of persons living with disabilities, and so on and so forth? So that is very important. But when we finally embark on addressing the issues to deal with individual persons, we must not lose sight of the requirements of the Constitution. We must not lose sight of the dictates and requirements of the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Public Officer Ethics Act, and the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. Madam Speaker, I'll be pleading with the members of this committee, and indeed the whole House, that we take it upon ourselves to interrogate, fairly of course, but very, very intensely, each and every individual. Each and every individual. Because, Madam Speaker, this country has a population of over 50 million people, out of whom more than or about 25 million are adults, who of course merit or qualified to be given appointments to hold public offices. And therefore, if the president brings the names of persons who, in the wisdom of this House, don't pass the suitability test, we are not trying to dictate the president on who to appoint. No. Far from it. We are simply telling the president that, please, you have the time to go back and pick from amongst 25 million or so Kenyans those who can pass the test. That's what we are saying in short. And I'm not inciting anybody. I'm simply preparing ground for the committee and the whole House that when embarking on this onerous task, we must be alive to the dictates of the Constitution and other statutes that govern generally matters of governance and good order. Madam Speaker, let me say this as I conclude. Let me say this. We have been told a number of times, and we agree, that the Constitution of Kenya guarantees innocence. There's a presumption of innocence until one is proved guilty or otherwise. But again, if you look at
member for Ugenya.
Respect for my neighbor and friend, probably senior, the member for Gunja. You're just in law school, so you could be my senior. Madam Speaker, is he preempting debate on the names that could come to this floor? Is he preempting debate on what could happen in the committee of appointments hearings? Because by going the way he's going, Madam Speaker, I fear that he's already made up his mind about the debate he's going to have when the names come to this floor, Madam Speaker. Is he in order?
Madam Speaker, I've been very careful, if you've been keenly following my comments. I haven't mentioned any name, and I will not, for sure, at this point in time. I'm just trying to lay the basis it's my duty, really. It's my obligation to guide my members and everybody else who may want to be guided, that this is a very serious exercise that we must approach with a lot of seriousness on our part. Madam Speaker, I want to say this, that persons being appointed to state offices or public offices, just as the Constitution requires, must be persons whose conduct bring honor, dignity, and everything else that is positive to those offices. So I just want to plead, Madam Speaker, as I second this motion, that this is one such exercise that this House, once it embarks on, the country must be convinced that the House has done justice, not only to the process itself, but to even those persons whose names have been brought before the committee and the House for approval. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I second.
Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Order 204, this House approves the appointment of the following members to the committee in addition to those specified under paragraph 1. 1, the Honorable Nelson Koech MP. 2, the Honorable Rehab Washira Mukami MP. 3, the Honorable Dindo Ali Raso MP. 4, the Honorable George Gitonga Murungara MP. 5, the Honorable David Kikaria MP. 6, the Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi MP. 7, the Honorable Mary Emase MP. 8, the Honorable Abdul Rahim Dawood MP. 9, the Honorable Junet Muhammad CBS MP. 10, the Honorable Caleb Amisi MP. 11, the Honorable Stephen Mule MP. 12, the Honorable Abdi Shure MP. 13, the Honorable Naisula Lesuda MP. 14, the Honorable Philip David Kosin CBS MP. 15, the Honorable Mishi